Stop and think. December 17th, 2024. 8:10 a.m. Munich, Germany. Your name is Lara. You are 38 years old. You are a mechanical engineer working in the logistics department at BMW. You're sipping your coffee on the balcony while checking your phone. You open a bank notification. The numbers are familiar, but something is missing. You've done everything right in life. You finished university, worked steadily, paid your insurance, and regularly transferred money into your pension fund. The money you've saved sits there on the screen. But the question is, will this money be enough for you? More importantly, will this money reach the next generation? Now imagine someone else. Yorgos, 74 years old, retired in Cyprus. He worked for the state for 33 years. He has 2 children and 5 grandchildren. All his life, he thought, no matter what happens, my savings are a guarantee for my family. And a teacher in Ohio. Clara, 45 years old, 3 children. She has been teaching in the school district for 14 years. Every month, she regularly deposits money into her 401k retirement account. 3 different countries, 3 different people, 3 different stories. But they all have one thing in common. They believe the system is working for them. Before moving on to the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like, and turn on notifications. Don't miss my other videos. Let's dive in. What does collapse look like? Wait a minute, because we need to clarify something here. Most people imagine a collapse like in the movies. Burning cars, street fights, queues in front of bank doors, soldiers, exploding buildings. But a real collapse looks nothing like that. Collapse is silent. It is administrative. It is bureaucratic. Collapse is a routine notification from your bank one morning. Collapse is learning that your pension fund has yielded 40% less than you expected. Collapse is your company sending you into early retirement under the guise of structural transformation. Collapse is the moment you realize that the cost of living has invisibly eroded your salary within a single year. And this process happens in a way where you can't blame anyone, because everyone followed the rules. The system worked exactly as it was designed. It's just that the design was not in your favor. Historical parallel. This has happened before. Now, I will take you back 101 years. 1923, Germany. The Weimar Republic. Debts from the First World War and war reparations are crushing the country. The government solution is simple. Print money. The result is also simple. A loaf of bread reached 200 billion marks. But pay attention. This process was not sudden. First, there was 10% inflation, then 100%, then 1,000%. Then words became meaningless. The middle class, those who had saved their whole lives, invested in government bonds, and chosen safe options, was wiped out within a few years. This is not a theory. It is documented history. Let's go back a little further. The Roman Empire, 260 AD. During the reign of Emperor Gallienus, the silver content in Roman silver coins, the denarius, was reduced from 85% to 5%. Same money, same appearance, different content. It continued to be accepted in trade until people noticed. This was one of the first coin-clipping operations in history. And today, you know this as quantitative easing. The tools have changed. The mechanism has not. Now, let's look at much more recent history. Argentina, December 2001. The government froze bank deposits. They called the system corralito the little fence. Hundreds of thousands of middle-class families woke up one morning unable to access their own money. Deposits were first frozen, then lost value through exchange rate manipulation, and then partially returned. Remember Yorgos, the retiree in Cyprus? In 2013, Cyprus experienced exactly this. Deposits over 100,000 euros were subjected to a mandatory haircut as part of the EU and IMF bailout package. In technical terms, this is called a bail-in. A portion of Yorgos' 33 years of savings was wiped out by a single directive during a weekend meeting. Let that sink in for a minute. Mechanism of mathematics. The 3 paths of the state. Now, put the conspiracy theories aside, because what we are talking about here isn't a conspiracy. It's incentive structures. If you want to understand why states always make certain decisions, ask this question. Which decision allows those in power to maintain their power? Mathematically, an over-indebted state has three paths. First path, default. Admit you cannot pay your debts and declare bankruptcy. This path crashes the system. Access to international credit is cut off. The currency collapses. A political crisis becomes inevitable. No government chooses this voluntarily. Second path, austerity. Cut spending. Freeze pensions. Reduce the health budget. Lay off public employees. This path leads to voter rebellion. The streets catch fire. Governments fall. You likely remember Greece's experience from 2010 to 2015. Third path, inflation. Print money. This path, which makes debt appear to melt away but actually pays off the debt by eroding savings, is the option with the lowest political cost. Because no one knows exactly who to blame. No one can go to the person responsible and knock on their door. And that is why no state in history that has become over-indebted has been able to escape the third path. Now let's talk numbers. As of 2024, the U.S. federal debt has exceeded $35 trillion. This means 123% of the country's total economic output, its GDP. The EU's total public debt is 83% of GDP. In Japan, this ratio is 260%. None of these figures can be paid off through organic growth, along with interest rates. Follow the decisions central banks make, how budget deficits are funded, and how the money supply expands. These are not dry technical data points. They are the decisions that determine the purchasing power of your savings. Once you see the pattern, you cannot unsee it. The system's betrayal. What happened to Lara? Let's go back to Lara. The year 2031. She is 45 years old. Her career at BMW has reached its end during a restructuring process. As part of a digital transformation, the company automated a significant portion of the logistics department. Lara was offered a package. She accepted. She had no other choice. She looked at her savings. A reasonable figure appeared in her pension fund. But the European Central Bank's policies over the last decade had pushed the real return on fixed-income assets below zero. When inflation hit 6%, the money in her fund continued to grow nominally, but its purchasing power silently melted away. Lara had made no mistakes. She was insured. She had saved. She had followed the rules. But the system was designed not for her, but to sustain its own debts. This is the essence of the middle-class inheritance trap. Leaving an inheritance is no longer just a matter of how much you saved. The real question is, through which mechanisms will what you save pass before it reaches the next generation? Clara's question, does a retirement fund really work? Clara deposits $500 into her 401k every month. The fund manager shows average returns for the past 10 years, 7%. The charts look beautiful. But one day, Clara realizes something. She never asked if that 7% was a real return or a nominal return. When you subtract inflation, subtract management fees, and account for the tax impact, the real picture looks very different. And Clara learns this. The 401k system was designed by the U.S. Congress in 1974 to help companies transition from defined benefit plans to defined contribution plans. In rough translation, companies got rid of the obligation to pay a monthly salary until death. Employees took on that risk. This isn't a conspiracy. This is a documented example of how incentive structures work. This channel is a system autopsy. We aren't looking for a culprit. We are examining the mechanism. Section 7. The breaking point. Why doesn't inheritance reach you? Now we come directly to the headline question. Why won't your family's wealth be left to you? There are 5 main mechanisms here. Let's examine them one by one. The silent tax of inflation. Since 1970, the U.S. dollar has lost approximately 95% of its purchasing power. So, $100,000 left by your grandmother in 1970 is worth about $5,000 in real value today. No legal regulation prevented this, because the system works exactly this way. Inheritance taxes. In the vast majority of OECD countries, inheritance transfers above a certain threshold are taxed. In Japan, the top bracket is 55%. In South Korea, it's 50%. In France, it's 45%. These taxes can be defended as a legitimate wealth redistribution mechanism, but the result remains the same. Intergenerational wealth transfer passes through a tax sieve. Care costs. In developed countries, an average period of intensive care or long-term nursing home care can consume most of the wealth a middle-class family has saved for years. In the U.S., the average annual cost of nursing home care is over $90,000. The financial literacy gap. One of the biggest obstacles to intergenerational wealth transfer is that those who inherit do not know how to protect that money. Research documents that inherited wealth often erode significantly within an average of 5 years. System incentives. If a state truly wanted its people to protect their wealth, it would design the tax code, monetary policy, and financial regulations differently. But these incentives do not exist, because debt financed by inflation serves the short-term interests of those who run the system. Let that sink in for another minute. Lara, Yorgos, and Clara did everything right. But the system was not designed for them. And this design operated without their knowledge, but with their money. Historical lesson. What did the survivors do? Throughout history, in every major wave of inflation, every currency crisis, and every pressure on inheritance transfer, some families protected their wealth. These were not families with special information, or those who were lucky. These were families who read the system in advance. Families who converted their property into fixed assets in foreign currency before the Weimar inflation. Families who moved their money abroad before the Argentine corralito. Those who kept their deposits below the €100,000 threshold before the Cyprus bail-in. These decisions were made not through conspiracy theories, but through mechanism analysis. They were made by answering the question, which direction are the incentive structures pushing me, rather than the government wants to rob me. Those who survived were not those who knew what would happen in the future, but those who read the system beforehand. What does this channel do? At this point, I want to stop and be clear. This video was not made to tell you to buy gold, invest in cryptocurrency, rebel against the system, or panic. This video was made to understand the mechanisms. This channel does not make predictions. It performs autopsies. An autopsy of Weimar Germany was performed. An autopsy of the Roman Empire was performed. The 2001 Argentina autopsy was performed. The 2013 Cyprus autopsy was performed. The situations of Lara, Yorgos, and Clara were mathematically analyzed. What do the findings show? They show that, for the middle class, the greatest risk is not the market crashing. The greatest risk is continuing to live within the system without understanding it. Once you see the pattern, you cannot unsee it. And this channel exists for those who want to see that pattern. Thanks for watching.